Before we begin, I want to ask you for one small thing. If this kind of content helps you see relationships more clearly, subscribe. It takes 1 second, but it helps this channel keep creating deeper videos about attraction, self-worth, emotional patterns, and the psychology beneath modern dating. There are 2 kinds of women a man may meet. The first is the woman he has a wonderful time with. He laughs with her. Conversation flows. The chemistry is immediate. She is charming, intelligent, funny, easy to be around. The date feels effortless, almost perfect, and every minute with her is enjoyable. Then there is the second woman. She may be just as warm, just as funny, just as captivating. But after she leaves, something stays behind. She becomes an unfinished thought, a question he keeps returning to while driving, working, lying awake at night. Not simply a pleasant memory, but a felt absence. Something is missing because she is no longer there. With the first woman, he may send a message a day or 2 later. "Hey, I had a great time yesterday." With the second, he checks his phone over and over, wondering why she has not written. He rereads the conversation. He tries to understand her. He finds himself returning to her in his mind without meaning to. This is not about becoming the perfect date. It is about becoming the woman who is not easy to forget. And if you have ever felt that you did everything right, showed interest, stayed kind, gave attention, opened your heart, and then watched him pull away, you may have assumed that you failed. But sometimes it is not failure. Sometimes you are following a relationship script women have been taught for generations. Be available, be reassuring, be transparent, make him feel wanted, show him you care. And in the world of modern dating, that script can work against you when it is used too early, too intensely, or without protecting your own center. What if being too accommodating, too reachable, and too quick to reveal everything is not proof of your love, but the reason the attraction begins to lose its charge? Think about why mysterious stories stay with us. Why do complicated characters linger in our imagination longer than simple ones? Why do we continue thinking about a story when there is still something unresolved? Because the mind is drawn toward what it has not fully understood. And in attraction, especially during the early stages, people often do not value what feels completely secured before they have had the chance to discover it. They are pulled toward what feels meaningful, layered, and not immediately available in full. That does not mean you need to play childish games or pretend to be unavailable. This is deeper than that. Think of it as the Mirage Effect. A mirage appears real in the distance. It looks tangible, like water in the desert, like an oasis waiting ahead. When you are present, you are warm, vivid, refreshing, real. But when you leave, a part of you should remain in his imagination. Not because you are trying to manipulate him, but because he has not received every answer at once. He is left with the sense that there is more to know about you, more to experience, more to discover. Your absence becomes a space where thoughts of you can grow. Are you ready to stop being the woman who is always predictable, always waiting, always available on demand? Are you ready to become a question he cannot easily remove from his mind? Stay with me, because the shift begins with one simple truth. For someone to miss you, they first need enough space to feel your absence. Write silence in the comments if you recognize this. You know the scene. You had a strong connection. You talked for hours. You laughed. You held eye contact. There was that tension between you, the feeling that this could become something. You said goodbye with possibility in the air. You were yourself, open, honest, funny, vulnerable. Then comes silence, or perhaps something even more confusing, a lukewarm echo. His messages become delayed. His replies become shorter. The warmth seems to slide away, and you cannot understand why. Then the mental spiral begins. What did I do wrong? Did I say something strange? Was I not interesting enough? You inspect every message, every gesture, every moment of the date. You replay the conversation until you are exhausted. And the worst part is what happens to your self-esteem. You begin treating his distance like evidence that something is wrong with you. But the answer is not always hidden under a microscope, in the tiny details of what you said or how you acted. Sometimes the answer is visible only when you step back and look through a telescope. The problem may not be that you did something badly. The problem may be that you did everything too well, according to an outdated script. You may have been too clear, too available, too consistently present, and without realizing it, you may have removed one of the elements that gives early attraction its energy, the feeling of mystery, the sense of discovery, the space for pursuit. Imagine that you are a film. If, within the first 10 minutes, you reveal the entire plot, the ending, and every twist, why would someone feel compelled to stay until the end? The trailer may have been beautiful, but if they already know everything, curiosity disappears. That is how early attraction can work. When you put your entire emotional world on a silver platter during the first date, it can feel as if you were showing the credits before the story has had time to unfold. This is not a guide to becoming cold. It is a guide to rewriting the script. By the end, you will understand why some men often become distant when things begin to feel intense. More importantly, you will see how to use distance without turning it into punishment, manipulation, or a mask. You will learn how to leave intentional spaces, not spaces that are filled with anxiety, but spaces that can be filled with thoughts of you. You will learn how to use your presence, but also your absence. Because in a world where everyone is constantly reachable, one of the most powerful things you can have is the ability to step back without losing yourself. An open book is often skimmed quickly, but a woman with a life, a rhythm, and a story that unfolds naturally can become someone whose next chapter he genuinely wants to read. To understand the Mirage Effect, we have to look at a basic part of male psychology, not as a universal rule, not as a guarantee, but as an ancient pattern that can show up in attraction. For thousands of years, the male brain was not designed for the Instagram age. It was shaped around solving problems, hunting, overcoming obstacles, pursuing goals, and reaching rewards. You could call this a conquest-oriented mode. When a man feels drawn to a woman, this system can become activated. Her attention, closeness, and interest may begin to feel like something he wants to earn. Each interaction becomes a new stage, the first smile, the first conversation, the first date. Every step can feel like a small win, and those small wins can create dopamine, the brain chemical associated with motivation, anticipation, pleasure, and reward. It is the same kind of internal signal that can appear when he wins a video game, closes a business deal, or solves a difficult problem. Dopamine tells him, keep going. What you are doing is working. There may be something valuable ahead. This is where two very different needs can collide. His inner system may be searching for challenge and reward. Your inner system may be searching for connection and security. You want to know that the relationship is real. You want steady ground before you open up more deeply. He may want to feel that there is a mountain to climb, and that the view is meaningful because he had to make the journey to reach it. So what happens when, with the best intentions, you give him everything at the beginning? You reveal your deepest fears on the second date. You are available around the clock. You fill every quiet moment with a question, a confession, or reassurance. You repeatedly tell him how much you like him. Without meaning to, you hand him the treasure map, the master key, and the code to the safe all at once. You remove the process of discovery. The mountain he was meant to climb becomes a small hill with a beautiful elevator. And even if the view is breathtaking, he may not experience the satisfaction of having earned it. The feeling of achievement is missing. The dopamine loop can lose momentum. That does not automatically mean he does not like you. He may think you are wonderful, but an older, instinctive part of his mind can send a message that sounds something like this. Mission complete. Goal reached. There is nothing else to unlock. And when there are no more levels to discover, his attention can begin drifting toward the next challenge. This is often the moment when you feel him cooling down. It may not be personal. It may not be a verdict on your value. Sometimes it is simply that his curiosity was fully satisfied before deeper interest had time to develop. The biggest mistake you can make at that point is believing that you need to give even more. More affection, more attention, more availability, more reassurance. But sometimes the answer is the opposite. You may need to offer less, not as a punishment, not as a game, but enough less that there is still room for curiosity. Enough room for him to feel that there is something left to explore, another layer to reach, another part of you to know. You need to learn to pause the interaction while it is still alive. End the game when it is exciting enough that he wants to continue tomorrow. Because if every reward is handed over on the first night, there is no reason to come back and play again. But challenge alone is not the whole story. There is another principle shaping attraction, purchasing decisions, desire, and even the way people assign value: scarcity. Why can a diamond, which is essentially carbon formed under pressure, be worth thousands of euros? Why do people stand in line for limited edition shoes? Why do they spend enormous amounts on unique pieces? Not because those things are always practical. Often, their value comes from rarity. They are difficult to obtain. Now apply that idea to what is most valuable in your life. Not your handbag, not your shoes, your time, your attention, your emotional energy, your mental space. These are your diamonds, your limited editions, your masterpieces. And like anything precious, if they are endlessly available to anyone who has your phone number, people can begin to treat them as ordinary. Let's look at a story. We will call them Lawrence and Martha. Lawrence and Martha have an incredible first date. The chemistry is strong. They laugh, talk, flirt, and everything feels right. Lawrence goes home floating on happiness and messages her immediately. "I just got home. Tonight was amazing. You're such an interesting woman. We have to do this again." Martha reads the message and smiles. Nice, she thinks. The next morning, Lawrence writes again right away. "Good morning. How did you sleep? I hope you have an amazing day." Martha reads it while heading to a meeting. She thinks it is sweet, but she does not have time to answer. Later that day, Lawrence sends her a meme that reminds him of their conversation. In the afternoon, he asks how her day is going. By evening, he has sent a long message explaining how available he is and how much he wants to see her. There is no doubt that Lawrence is interested. He is fully present. Now step inside Martha's mind for a moment. Does she necessarily think Lawrence is a bad person? No, she may not dislike him at all. But subconsciously, she may begin to feel that there is nothing left to discover. There is no room for her to wonder, does he really like me? There is no space for her own initiative, no room for her desire to move toward him. Lawrence, with the best intentions, has served dinner, dessert, and coffee before Martha has even had the chance to feel hungry. He has filled the mental space where anticipation could have grown, the space where she might have missed him. Then comes the painful twist. Martha begins pulling back, not necessarily because she dislikes Lawrence, but because she feels overwhelmed by attention she did not have time to earn, choose, or return. Lawrence senses the distance and panics. And then he makes one of the most common mistakes in dating. He doubles down. Maybe I wasn't clear enough, he thinks. So he sends an even longer, more emotional message. Is everything okay? I feel like you're pulling away. And without intending to, he seals the attraction inside a feeling of pressure. He no longer feels like an intriguing possibility. He starts to feel like a problem that needs to be managed, or worse, an emotional weight. Many potential relationships do not fail because there was no interest. They drown in too much communication too early. They sink because people confuse availability with attraction. They assume that constantly appearing in someone's digital world is proof of care, when it can sometimes turn them into background noise instead of the melody that stays in someone's mind. And then there is a modern misunderstanding that makes everything worse. The idea that if someone truly likes you, none of this matters. That is one of the biggest lies in modern dating. Perhaps after 20 years of marriage, the timing of a message does not matter in the same way. But in the delicate beginning of attraction, when the flame is still trying to catch, details can matter. It is the difference between a campfire that has been built carefully and a match that goes out in the first breeze. Maybe you have reached that turning point already. You were a good woman. You were honest. You were open. You showed interest. You revealed your heart, and it did not work. Or maybe it worked only briefly before it disappeared into indifference. You were tired of analyzing, tired of asking what you did wrong. At that moment, two temptations usually appear. The first is to give up and decide that all men are the same. The second is to build a cynical wall and become cold, calculating, and strategic. But stop. Take a deep breath, because your greatest frustration can become the moment everything changes. The missing piece is simple, but it can feel brutally honest. The Mirage Effect is not really about making yourself scarce. It is not about pretending to be busy. It is not about ignoring him on purpose. Those are games. Those are masks. The real shift begins in your mind. It begins the moment you stop asking, "Am I good enough for him?" and begin asking, with real conviction, "Is he good enough for my time?" Read that again. Feel the weight of it. Notice how the power changes. You are no longer desperately seeking approval. Your value starts to come from within. Now he is the one who has to show that he deserves access to your world. And here is the difficult truth. A man does not fall in love with a woman simply because she is endlessly available. He is more likely to be drawn to a woman whose availability feels meaningful, not a woman who gives her time away for free to anyone who asks, but a woman whose life is already full of purpose, interests, friendships, passions, and personal growth, so that 1 hour with her feels like something valuable, something that has to be earned. Your attention is not a public service available to anyone who happens to have your number. Your attention is a return on investment. It is a reward for his effort, his consistency, his genuine interest, his reliability, his ability to inspire you, and his ability to add something meaningful to a life that is already full and exciting without him. Once you begin living from this mindset, everything changes. You no longer feel responsible for filling every silence because you protect your valuable peace. You do not panic if you cannot answer immediately because you are busy living your life. You do not tell him your entire life story on the first date because you understand that real connection is a slow, beautiful dance, not a job interview. Here is the sentence that holds it all together. A man, or really any person, does not only value the time spent with you, they value the privilege of receiving that time. People want to feel chosen. They want to feel that they passed a test, that they gained access to something that is not freely available to everyone. If your presence feels like a gift handed out without a reason and without a boundary, it can begin to lose its meaning. But if your presence feels like the reward at the end of a meaningful path, it can become one of their deepest desires. And I know what you may be thinking. I understand it, but how do I actually do this? How do you become valuable without becoming arrogant? How do you keep mystery without becoming distant? How do you show your worth without announcing it to the world? The answer is simpler and more elegant than you may think. We are going to break it into 3 pillars, not rules, a way of living. Write value in the comments if this shift feels familiar. The first pillar is the art of dosage. Imagine that your attention and energy are like a beautiful perfume in a small bottle. You do not bathe in it. You place a small amount on the points where it can be noticed. It is subtle. It is inviting. It is unforgettable because it is not overwhelming. That is how you should approach early interactions. The first practice is this. Be the one who sometimes ends the conversation. Psychology calls this the Zeigarnik effect. People often remember interrupted or unfinished experiences more strongly than experiences that feel completely closed. Use that understanding in your conversations and dates. When the moment is good, when the laughter is flowing, when the conversation is becoming interesting, when you both feel connected, allow yourself to end it first. Smile and say something like, "I'd love to keep talking, but tomorrow is a big day for me. I need to get some sleep. We'll talk later." Feel the difference. That is not rejection. It is a statement. My life, my goals, and my well-being matter. You leave him with a little longing. You create room for him to want more of you. The second practice is to leave space for missing you. This means releasing the reflex to answer every message immediately. This is not about a ridiculous 3-hour rule. It is about genuinely having a life of your own. When a message arrives, do not rush to your phone as if it is the last glass of water in the desert. Finish what you are doing. Stay in the moment. Then, respond calmly when it makes sense. Sometimes that may be 5 minutes later. Sometimes it may be 2 hours later. Your pattern will not be perfectly predictable because your life is not perfectly predictable. And that space, the empty space between messages, can become the canvas onto which he projects thoughts about you. The second pillar, and perhaps the most important one, is building a complete life. This is the engine of the Mirage Effect. Because this is not about acting as though you have an exciting life. It is about genuinely creating one. A woman who enjoys her own existence carries an energy that can become deeply magnetic. Here is your assignment. Take a piece of paper and write down everything you have always wanted to do for yourself. A pottery class? Sign up this week. That trip with your girlfriends you have postponed forever? Set a date. That personal project sitting untouched in a drawer? Give it an hour every day. Call your family. Read. Exercise. Not to look desirable for a man, but to feel the strength of your body for yourself. Become the leading woman in your own film. When you do that, something powerful begins to happen. You stop seeing a man as the center of your universe. You begin seeing him as a possible partner within it. You are no longer waiting by the phone for his call because you are too involved in enjoying your own life. And that energy, that self-sufficiency, can be difficult to resist. He will sense that your world is already bright, active, and complete. His instinct may switch on, not to rescue you, but to prove that he is worthy of becoming part of your life. The third pillar is the language of value. This is about how you communicate who you are. When you speak about your life, speak with passion, not from lack. Let him see your eyes light up when you talk about your work, your hobbies, your friends, and the things that make you feel alive. And change the tone of your communication. Instead of asking for reassurance, speak from quiet inner confidence. Do not say, "When are we seeing each other again?" Say, "I enjoyed our conversation. You gave me something to think about." The first sentence asks, the second offers value. You are still giving him the ball, but you are doing it from a place of inner strength. When you live through these three pillars, the Mirage Effect stops being a technique. It becomes the natural result of inner richness. You are no longer the woman sitting beside the phone. You become the woman he hopes will make room for him in her next week. We have traveled a long way, from the pain of a quiet phone screen to the deeper psychology of attraction. We have questioned old myths. We have redefined strategy. We have built a new perspective on your own worth. But if you see the Mirage Effect only as a way to keep him interested, you will miss 90% of its power. Because this was never truly about him. It has always been about you. It is about the decision to place yourself back at the center of your own life. It is about remembering that your time, your passions, and your life have value even if no man is watching. It is about reconnecting with yourself so deeply that you fall in love with your own life again. There is an irony in attraction. The harder you chase validation, the more it tends to move away. The more desperately you pursue attention, the more invisible you can begin to feel. And often, the moment you stop searching and commit yourself to your own path, you suddenly sense someone behind you trying to keep up. Think back to the periods of your life when you felt most alive, most whole, and most connected to yourself. Maybe it was when you moved to a new city. Maybe it was when you were absorbed in a project you loved. Maybe it was when you were surrounded by friends who nourished your soul. You were so busy tending to your own garden that you did not notice when the butterflies began to arrive. And honestly, were those not often the moments when attention came most naturally, when you were not looking for it? That is the clearest evidence of all. The most magnetic state a woman can inhabit is inner flourishing. Real attraction is not just something you do toward another person. It is an energy you radiate. It is the natural result of a life filled with passion. That is why the real goal is not to make him think about you constantly. That may happen, but it is only a side effect. The true goal is to fall so deeply in love with your own life that the idea of giving up your peace, your time, or your principles for someone who has not earned them becomes unthinkable. His interest is welcome, but it is not required. His presence can be a beautiful bonus. It is not the source of your happiness. Stop chasing butterflies. Take care of your garden. Feed your passions. Protect your friendships. Water your dreams. Build a life so full of color, beauty, movement, and meaning that butterflies have no choice but to come near it. Some will come and go, but the right ones, the ones who recognize the value of your garden, will stay. Write garden in the comments if you are choosing yourself again. At the end of all this, the question is not, how do I make him want me? The question is, am I living a life I would miss if I had to give it up for someone? Because the answer to that question contains everything. We crossed the desert together and discovered that the most important mirage is not the one he sees on the horizon. It is the one you create for yourself. A life so real, so vibrant, and so completely yours that his thirst for your attention becomes only a footnote in your story. We have talked about psychology, tactics, closeness, distance, and the dance between presence and absence. But when you remove all the strategies, you are left with yourself. You stand in front of the mirror of your own choices. And the next time you feel the urge to send the second message, the next time your finger hovers over the call button because you are searching for reassurance he cannot give you, the next time you are ready to sacrifice your rest, your work, or your peace just to analyze his behavior, pause. In that silence, do not ask, what is he thinking? Ask something far more important. What would my future self say about me? The version of you who fulfilled her dreams. The woman who leads her own life. The woman who goes to sleep fulfilled, not because she received messages, but because she took the steps she promised herself she would take. What if your greatest enemy is not his silence? What if it is your own silence, the silence of your intuition telling you that you deserve more than crumbs of attention? The silence of your dreams, fading every time you place someone else before yourself. Maybe you have been looking in the wrong direction all along. Maybe the question was never, how do I keep him here? Maybe the real question is, how do I stop telling myself that I need someone else's obsession in order to feel complete? Stop auditioning for the role of a supporting character in his film. Start casting yourself as the main character in your own. Be selective, be thoughtful, not because you are arrogant, but because the role of partner in your life is one of the most important roles you will ever offer. And only someone extraordinary should be worthy of it. So the next time you stare at an empty screen, waiting for a message to fill a space he did not even create, ask yourself, who is really missing here? Is it him? Or is it the woman you became when you forgot how incredibly valuable you are? Because real power begins when you become the woman even you refuse to lose. Write "ready" in the comments if you are done abandoning yourself. Thank you for staying until the end. If this message gave you even a small shift in perspective, support the channel by subscribing and leaving a like. Every bit of support makes it possible to keep creating deeper stories and conversations like this. I'll see you in the next video.